Hi and welcome to another video by Fratello. I am RJ. Today I will be talking about the new Speedmaster Moonwatch. Last week Omega introduced the new Speedmaster Professional Moonwatch, master chronometer. Here it is. On first hand it looks a bit different from the previous one that I have here. I think the thing that's most noticeable will be the bracelet. It went from this large chunky bracelet with big polished in-between links to a more refined bracelet that looks a bit like a bracelet that Omega used in the 80s and 90s, the 1479 for the fans, and way back they had this bracelet as well, and then it was the 1116. I have the old bracelet here. This is the 1479 that Omega used from 88 or 89 till 1996 when it was replaced by this bracelet. So the bracelet is one of the first things to notice, but upon closer inspection you will see that a lot of details changed basically. Omega reintroduced the step dial, and we will show you in this video in a close-up how that looks. The step dial was used by Omega's Speedmaster till 1974, and then the bracelet got a bit more flat like on this previous Moonwatch, but luckily they reintroduced the step. It has been hailed by many fans. The Dawn bezel is back, so the dot over 90 bezel was also not the case with the previous one. Omega did use that on the Speedy Tuesday Ultraman, and for instance the watch I'm wearing here, the gold Apollo 11 Moonshine from 2019, also had the dot over 90 bezel. So they brought back the dot over 90 bezel. It is an aluminum bezel, so no ceramics. Also not on the Saphire version that I have here as well. The Saphire version also uses aluminum bezel. I like it because I like the look of it, the matte look. A ceramic bezel is very nice, like on this one, and there's one on the Snoopy for example. The pros of a ceramic bezel is that it won't discolor, it will be the same in 30 years from now, and the aluminum bezel might fade a bit. I have some old ones here as well, not very super visible. Here's one that is a bit damaged on an old 321 caliber Speedmaster. You will see that it fades a bit to grey, and of course it's a steel bezel with an aluminum inlay, and yeah, it dents and it will scratch at some point. So yeah, both have the aluminum bezel. I wouldn't have mind if they put the ceramic bezel on the Saphire version, but yeah, that's a choice by Omega. The difference between the Saphire and the Hesalite, besides the crystal, is that the Saphire version has a transparent caseback where you can see the new movement, the 3861. Due to the Saphire, it's a bit thinner. It's 13.18 millimeters as opposed to the Hesalite, which is 13.58. Also, the Saphire watch is a little bit heavier, not by much. I just put them on the little scale. The Hesalite version with the bracelet with all the links in there is 134 grams, while the Hesalite version, Saphire version is 138 grams. So just minor differences between those. The look of the Saphire is something you either love or hate, I guess. It has the milky white ring that people often talk about. The Hesalite version doesn't have that. The advantage of the Hesalite is that the dial looks much darker or really black, while here it occurs to be a bit of a grey tone at times, depending on the angle of the light. Interesting about the new Moonwatch is the printing on the dial. There are a few slight changes in comparison to the previous Moonwatch. One of the first things is of course the Omega logo, the word mark and the wording Speedmaster and Professional. The logo has become smaller and the words Omega, Speedmaster and Professional has become bigger. Also the word Speedmaster is almost as wide as the word Professional on the dial, and in the past it was a bit smaller and it went a bit more in a triangle shape. Omega logo, Omega wording, Speedmaster Professional, and now with the new one you will see that Speedmaster and Professional are almost as wide as each other, and the Omega logo has become a bit smaller. Which one I prefer? I prefer the old one when it comes to printing, but when it comes to the Hesalite and the Saphire, I really prefer the Hesalite version because I don't really fancy the applied logo on the new one. If you look at some of the old ones, like the Speedy Tuesday, for example, and I know it's like a bit of a re-edition, but also on the gold one, those applied Omega logos are a bit different from the ones used on this modern Speedmaster Moonwatch. On the new Moonwatch there, it's a bit smaller, it's a bit more round, it's a bit more polished, while on vintage models and vintage inspired models, it's a bit bigger and more flat and sometimes has a brushed finish. What also changed, and people already commented on that, is the number of indexes between the minute markers on the dial. There are now only 2 between the minute markers, and it used to be more. Those are both the new ones. Here's the old one, it's about 5. So these are much smaller on the old one, and on the new one it's only 2 little markers between the minute markers. It's also not entirely new because it was also there on the Speedy Tuesday, for example. It's just some kind of correction that has been made because with the movement inside, it ticks at 21,600 vibrations per hour, meaning it's 3 Hertz. So if you use the chronograph and you push stop, you will get a better readout with less indexes between the hour markers. That's basically it for the printing on the dial. Nicely done. It's a bit different from the previous model. Personally, I like the previous model a bit better. And when it comes to the new Moonwatch, I prefer the one with the printed logo instead of the applied logo. And the second hand changed. It has like a teardrop short end, while at the previous version it was a straight cut at the short end. So this grabs back to the 105012 and 145012 and 105003 and so on, like the really old versions that have that short end with a teardrop shape like this, and white as well. A lot of people ask me, because we introduced this watch last week on FratelloWatches, we got a lot of replies, a lot of comments. People asked, I like the previous Speedmaster a bit better, and I don't feel comfortable trading my former Moonwatch for a new one, but I really love the bracelet. Will the bracelet fit? And yes, it fits. I tried. I put a picture on FratelloWatches. I put a picture on the Speedy Tuesday Instagram account. So if you want to look how it, want to see how it looks, have a look on there. It does fit. There's a little bit of play in there, so the case shape is a bit different on the new one. So you might need to file down the end piece of the bracelet a little bit, but it's easy. It's a beautiful bracelet, much nicer in my opinion than this one. It's not a bad bracelet, but I think the quality of this one is really, really awesome. Screwed links, like the later versions of this one, were also screwed. And the clasp is 15 millimeters wide instead of the 18 on the old ones. And 15, it's 1 millimeter thicker than on the gold one, which is 14 millimeter, which is quite thin, but I like it because it grabs back to the original one from 69. This one of course doesn't, but it's 15 millimeters. It's a bit more solid looking, to be honest. So, but it fits on the previous Moonwatch. Whether it fits on the Silver Snoopy Award 50th anniversary, I don't know yet. The cases are more or less the same, all based on the 4th iteration of the Speedmaster, so that would be 105012, the watch that was actually first used on the moon by Aldrin, and it has the same case shape. So the case shape also changed a bit from the previous Moonwatch to the new Moonwatch, especially the end of the lugs are different. You will see that up close and on an article on Fratello that we publish, where we compare the old Moonwatch with the new Moonwatch. We have more detailed shots there. The pushes are also a bit different than on the previous one, so it all grabs back to a 105012. The big news is really the movement. It's a 3861. The previous one was the 1861, which is a Lemania based movement based on the 861 that was discontinued in 96. I have one of those, not super old. Oh, here's one from 95. It's an Apollo 13 limited edition. It has the 1479 bracelet, so looking very familiar with the new ones. This was one of the last ones with the 861. Then they came with the 1861, which is this one basically. And the new one, the 3861, was introduced with the gold Apollo 11 and the steel Apollo 11 of 2019. It's a master chronometer movement, meaning that the movement as such is chronometer certified by COSC. Then it was cased, and then Omega puts it at the test in Biel, and it's certified by Metas, being a master chronometer. So it runs between 0 and 5 seconds per day on average, and every watch has been tested and certified. It gets a shock test, it's anti-magnetic to 15,000 Gauss, so it comes with all the perks of a modern Omega watch, basically, in a very familiar old style case. The movement is not visible in the Hesalite version, but it is in the Saphire version, where there's a Caseback with a sapphire crystal. Both are exactly the same movement, so the finish is exactly the same. With the previous one, with the 1861, you also had the option to have one with a sapphire crystal and a sapphire caseback, and way back with a Hesalite crystal with a sapphire caseback. But it had the 1863 or 863 movement, which had a different type of finish. It had a nicer, a more luxurious finish. With the new Moonwatch, the movements are exactly the same. We opened up the case of this one and we had a check. We'll put some pictures on Fratello. It's exactly the same movement. The one with the closed case back has also a different case back than the previous one, where previously it said flight qualified for all manned space missions. Flight qualified by NASA, of course. Not certified, qualified. There's a difference. The new one has flight qualified by NASA in 1965 for all manned space missions, because the Moonwatch was qualified by NASA in 1965. Also not this one with the 1861. The last Speedmaster that was qualified was one with the 861 in 1978, but the first one was the 105003 with caliber 321, and that one was qualified by NASA for use in space and on the moon, of course. So Omega engraved it in 1965 to perhaps to prevent the discussion around whether this movement, this exact watch was qualified. And of course, also with there was a discussion around manned space missions or human space missions. I think to kill all these discussions, they put in the in 1965 in the engraving. For the rest, it's all the same. First watch worn on the moon. The caseback is a little bit different here as well, because it has the little bevel on the caseback, like the original 105012 also had. Well, some of them at least. So this watch, it grabs back to the 105012 in terms of the case shape and design. Caseback, step dial, chronograph seconds hand with a teardrop end. Beautiful watch. The clasp is a bit different. People complained a bit there's no micro adjustment. Well, there is. There are two little holes in the clasp, and you can set or change the bracelet length with 1/3 of a link at a time. So with these two holes, you can set it by 2/3 of a link, and then if you need to take a link out or in, then there you go, that's an entire link swap. It's the same on this gold one that I've been wearing for 1.5 years now, and for me it's a perfect way to set a bracelet. Of course, it's easier to have a push button and then extend or make a bracelet a bit smaller, but in the end I set it once and it's fine. And sometimes during summer I make it a bit different than in the winter, of course. The prices of these watches, this one with the Hesalite crystal is 6,100 euros. The one with the sapphire and applied logo is 7,000 euros. If you don't want a bracelet, and I can't imagine you don't want them, it's 300 less. And then you get them on the leather strap in case of the sapphire, and you get a soft, like a nylon fabric black strap, like on the Snoopy. That's also like 300 less. But I would always order them on a steel bracelet, and if you want to have those straps, just order them separately. I think it's more of a hassle to get that bracelet later on than to get an additional strap. These are the steel watches. They come in a smaller box than previously. We didn't get the boxes from Omega for these review watches, but I've seen the boxes and there are pictures on the website. It's a smaller version of the big Moonwatch box that they used for the previous version. Inside is this travel pouch. It really comes in really handy, but there's no extra straps anymore. There's no loop and so on. No coin. Just what you need basically. And to be honest, these boxes, they take a lot of space in your attic anyway. Last but not least, there's the gold Speedmaster, the white gold. There's also a Sedna gold. We don't have that yet here, but here's the white gold version. It's 44,300 euros. And this is the white gold version of the new Moonwatch. There's also a Sedna gold version, which is a bit cheaper. I think it's around 37,000 or 35,000 from top of my head, but you can check those prices on the OmegaWatches.com website to check it in your local currency, which makes most sense because even here in Europe we have differences in VAT, for example in Germany and in the Netherlands, so there are different euro prices floating around. So this watch is basically the same as the Hesalite, the Saphire version in steel, but of course it's in white gold and it comes with the Saphire caseback, exactly the same movement. Beautiful sunray dial. It's not a white gold dial, but it has a sunray finish, and the hour markers and the hands are in white gold. This watch weighs a lot more. Just put it on a scale as well. It's 235 grams, which is a bit more than the Moonshine one, which was around 220 grams with all the links there, but I had to take some links out. Comes in the same box as the steel models, so you don't have to do it for the box. You really need to do it for the white gold. It's a really impressive watch, and you will read all about it on Fratello. Thank you for watching. If you have very specific questions, don't hesitate to ask them in the comments or send us an email at info@fratello.com. All the details are also on FratelloWatches.com in the article of January 5th. There you can find everything you need to know about these watches. And we have a separate article on the exact differences between the former Moonwatch and the new Moonwatch. Make sure to subscribe to our channel, and thanks for watching. Goodbye.